Good morning. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna be talking about a story about Beverly Allit. She is a woman also known as the Angel of Death. She is in Britain, and she's one of the most notorious female serial killers so far. She was born in, let me see what. She was born. Let me get a little info here out here. I've seen it somewhere. These are some quick facts about Miss Beverly. She was born Beverly Allit, October 4th, 1968, in England, in the United Kingdom. Female, best known for Beverly Allit, also known as the Angel of Death, and the industry she is from is science and medicine, crime and terrorism, and she's a Libra. So this story is about she was a nurse, so, and they call her the Angel of Death. So she's probably one of those nurses who kill people for a living. Instead of helping them, she kill them. So I'm just gonna be reading from my little paper that I have here, because I got a lot of little notes on here and stuff about her. So I'm just gonna read as much as I can. See what you think about this lady here, because I don't know why people do what they do, but it's interesting. I read a little bit of it. It's kind of interesting. It's just, I don't understand why people do what they do. I just don't. Why would you want to be a nurse if you didn't want to save people, you wanted to kill people? Why didn't you just go out and be a serial killer out there? Okay, so her name is Beverly Allit, Allitt, Allit. In 1991, nurse Beverly Allit claimed her first victim, seven-month-old Liam Taylor. Her next victim was Timothy Hardwick, an 11-year-old with cerebral palsy. No suspicions were aroused at first, as she continued her spree of violence unchecked. In total, she claimed 4 young lives and attempted the murder of 9 other victims. Suspicions were raised when records revealed missing nursing logs. So I guess I'm going to find out the timeline here and stuff. So in 91, so we know she started in 91. But her first victim was a 7-month-old Liam. I guess he was a little boy, Liam Taylor. And the next one was Timothy Hardwick, 11-year-old with cerebral palsy. So I guess we're gonna find out why the 7-month-old was in the hospital. The 11-year-old, I can understand, he probably was going through some of the complications and stuff because he had cerebral palsy. So the 7-month, they haven't told us yet, but I'm sure we're gonna find out. Beverly Allit, or the Angel of Death, as she would later become known, exhibited some worrying tendencies early on while growing up as one of 4 children, including wearing bandages and casts over wounds that she used to draw attention to herself. She did that to draw attention to herself. Okay. There, it's coming. Without actually allowing the injuries to be examined. Becoming overweight as an adolescent, she became increasingly attention-seeking, often showing aggression towards others. She spent considerable time in hospitals seeking medical attention for a string of physical ailments, which culminated in the removal of her perfectly healthy appendix, which was slow to heal, as she insisted on interfering with the surgical start. She was also known to self-harm and have to resort to doctor hopping as medical practitioners became familiar with her attention-seeking behavior. Allitt's behavior in adolescence appeared to be let me slow down. Allitt's behavior in adolescence appeared to be typical Munchausen disease, and when this behavior failed to elicit her desired reaction in others, she began to harm others in order to satisfy her desire to be noticed. She went on to train as a nurse and was suspected of odd behavior, such as smearing feces on wall in a nursing home where she was trained. Her absentee level was also exceptionally high and the result of a string of illnesses. Her boyfriend at the time said later that she was aggressive, manipulative, and deceptive, claiming false pregnancies as well as rape before the end of their relationship. Despite her history of poor attendance and successive failures of her nursing examination, she was taken on a temporary 6-month contract at a chronically unstaffed Grantham and Stephenson Hospital in Lincolnshire in 1991, where she began working with children. She began working in the children's ward. There are only 2 trained nurses. Excuse me. Oh my God. I should stop trying to do this when I get off work in the morning. I should just go to bed, then just get up and do it, or do it on my day off. Okay. There were only 2 trained nurses on the day shift and 1 for the night when she started, which might explain how her violent, attention-seeking behavior went undetected for as long as it did. Her crime. On February 21st, 1991, her first victim, 7-month-old Liam Taylor, was admitted to the children's ward with a chest infection. Allitt went out of her way to reassure his parents that he was in capable hands and persuaded them to go home to get some rest. When they returned, Allitt told them that Liam had suffered a respiratory emergency, but that he had recovered. She volunteered for extra night duty so she could watch over the boy, and his parents chose to spend the night at the hospital as well. Liam had another respiratory crisis just before midnight, but it was felt that he'd come through it satisfactorily. Allitt was left alone with the boy, however, and his condition worsened dramatically, becoming deadly pale before red blotches appeared on his face, at which point Allitt summoned an emergency resuscitation team. Allitt's nursing colleagues were confused by the absence of alarm monitors at the time, which had failed to sound when he stopped breathing. Liam suffered cardiac arrest, and despite the best efforts of the attending team, he suffered severe brain damage and remained alive only with the help of life support machines. On medical advice, his parents made the agonizing decision to remove their baby from life support, and his cause of death was recorded as heart failure. Allitt was never questioned about her role in Liam's death. Only 2 weeks after Taylor's death, her next victim was Timothy Hardwick, an 11-year-old with cerebral palsy, who was admitted following an epileptic fit on March 5th, 1991. Allitt took over his care, and again, following a period when she was alone with the boy, she summons the emergency resuscitation team, who found him without a pulse and turning blue. Despite their best efforts, the team, which included a pediatric specialist, were unable to revive him. An autopsy later failed to provide an obvious cause of death, although his epilepsy was officially blamed. Her third victim, 1-year-old Kaylee Desmond, was admitted on March 3rd, 1991, with a chest infection, from which she seemed to be recovering well. 5 days later, with Allit in attendance, Kaylee went into cardiac arrest in the same bed where Liam Taylor had died 4 nights before. Excuse me. The resuscitation team were able to revive her, and she was transferred to another hospital in Nottingham, where attending physicians discovered an odd puncture hole under her armpit during a thorough examination. They also discovered a air bubble near the puncture mark, which they attribute to an accidental injection, but no investigation was initiated. 5-month-old Paul Crampton became Atlitt's next victim, placed in the ward on March 20th, 1991, as a result of non-serious bronchial infection. Just prior to his discharge, Allit, who was again attending the patient by herself, summoned help as Paul appeared to be suffering from insulin shock, going into a near coma on 3 separate occasions. Each time the doctors revived him, but were unable to explain the fluctuation in his insulin levels. When he was taken by ambulance to another hospital in Nottingham, Allit rode with him. He was again found to have too much insulin. Paul was extremely fortunate to have survived the ministrations of the angel of death. The next day, 5-year-old Bradley Gibson, a pneumonia sufferer, went into unexpected cardiac arrest, but was saved by the resuscitation team. Johnny on the spot. Subsequent blood tests showed that his insulin was too high, which made no sense to the attending physicians. Again, it made no sense to them. Let's see what they're going to do about this one. Attendance by Allit resulted in another heart attack later that night, and he was transported to Nottingham, where he recovered. Despite this alarming increase in the incidence of unexplained health events, all in the presence of Allit, no suspicions were aroused at this time, and she continued her spree of violence unchecked. Wow, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? It clicked on nobody yet. It has clicked on nobody yet. I'm gonna get a drink of my pop. It hasn't clicked on anybody yet. Wow. Somebody paying attention. They just ain't said nothing yet. Okay, on March 22nd, 1991, 2-year-old victim Yik Hung Chan turned blue and appeared in considerable distress when Allit raised his alarm. But he responded well to oxygen. Excuse me. Another attack resulted in the transfer to a larger hospital in Nottingham, where he recovered. His symptoms were attributed to fractured skull as a result of a fall. Allit next turned attention to twins, Katie and Becky Phillips, just 2 months old, who were kept in for observation as a result of their premature delivery. A bout of gastroenteritis brought Becky into the ward on April 1st, 1991, when Allit took over her care. 2 days later, Allit raised their alarm, claiming that Becky appeared hypoglycemic and cold to the touch, but no ailments were found. Baby Becky was sent home with her mother. Thank God she dodged that bullet. During the night, she went into convulsions and cried out in apparent pain, but when summoned, a doctor suggested she had colic. Her parents kept her in their bed for observation, and she died during the night. Despite an autopsy, pathologists could not find no clear cause of death. Becky's surviving twin Katie was admitted in Grantham as a precaution, and unfortunately for her, Allit was again in attendance. Wow. It wasn't long before she was again summoning the resuscitation team to revive baby Katie, who had stopped breathing. Efforts to revive Katie were successful, but 2 days later she suffered a similar attack, which resulted in the collapse of her lung. Following another revival effort, she was transferred to Nottingham, where it was found that 5 of her ribs were broken, in addition to having suffered serious brain damage as a result of oxygen deprivation. Wow. Still nobody noticed nothing. Not even at the other hospital. Because if it was me, I'd be wondering why all these people coming from this hospital coming over here after all this. I ain't paying attention yet. In a supreme twist of irony, Katie's mother, Sue Phillips, was so grateful to Allit for saving her baby's life that she asked her to be Katie's godmother. Allit accepted willingly, despite having inflicted partial paralysis, cerebral palsy, and sight and hearing damage on the infant. 4 more victims followed, but the high incidence of unexplained attacks in otherwise healthy patients and Allit's attendance during these attacks finally caused suspicion to be raised at the hospital. Allit's violent spree was brought to an end with the death of 15-month-old Claire Peck on April 22nd, 1991, an asthmatic who required a breathing tube. While in Allit's care for a few minutes, the infant suffered a heart attack. The resuscitation team revived her successfully, but when again alone in Allit's presence, baby Claire suffered a second heart attack, from which she could not be revived. Although an autopsy indicated that Claire had died from natural causes, an inquiry was initiated by a consultant at the hospital, Dr. Nelson Porter, who was alarmed by the high number of cardiac arrests over the previous 2 months in the children's ward. An airborne virus was initially suspected, but nothing was found. A test that revealed a high level of potassium in baby Claire's blood resulted in the police being summoned 18 days later. Her exhumation discovered traces of lignocaine in her system, a drug used during cardiac arrest, but never given to a baby. Wow. The police superintendent assigned to the investigation, Stuart Clifton, suspected foul play, and he examined the other suspicious case that had occurred in the previous 2 months, finding an inordinarily high dose of insulin in most. Further evidence revealed that Allit had reported the key missing to the insulin refrigerator. All records were checked, parents of the victims were interviewed, and security cameras were installed. Suspicions were raised when record checks revealed missing daily nursing logs, which correspond to the time period when Paul Crampton had been in the ward. With 25 separate suspicious episodes, with 13 victims were identified, 4 of whom were dead, the only common factor was the presence of Beverly Allit at every episode. So, now that was in, when was that? That last little baby. That was, let me see when that was. Let's see. That was in April. The last thing she did was in April. So she got arrested July 29th, police felt that they had sufficient evidence to charge Allit with murder, but it wasn't until November 91 that she was formally charged. Allit showed calm and restraint under interrogation, denying any part in the attacks, insisting she had merely been caring for the victims. A search of her home revealed parts of the missing nursing logs. Further extensive background checks by police indicated a pattern of behavior that pointed to a very serious personality disorder. And Allit exhibits symptoms of both Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which are both characterized by getting attention through illness. With Munchausen syndrome, physical and psychological symptoms are either self-induced or foreign in oneself to gain attention, while Munchausen by proxy involves inflicting injury on others to gain attention for oneself. It is fairly unusual for an individual to present with both conditions. Well, hell, she got her. Allit's behavior in adolescence appeared to be typical of Munchausen syndrome, and when this behavior failed to elicit the desired reaction in others, she began to harm her young patients in order to satisfy her desire to be noticed. Despite visits and assessment by the number of healthcare professionals while in prison, Allit refused to confess that what she had done. A series of hearings. Allit was charged with 4 counts of murder, 11 counts of attempt murder, and 11 counts of causing grievous bodily harm. As she awaited her trial, she rapidly lost weight and developed anorexia nervosa, and further indicates of her psychological problem. After numerous delays due to her illness, as a result from which she had lost 70 pounds, she went to trial in Nottingham Crown Court on February 5th, 1993, where prosecutors demonstrated to the jury how she had been presented at each suspicious episode and the lack of episodes when she was taken off the ward. Evidence about high reading of insulin and potassium in each of the victims, as well as drug injection and puncture marks, were also linked to Allit. She was further accused of cutting off her victims' oxygen, either by smothering or tampering with machines. Her unusual behavior in childhood was brought to light, and the pediatric expert, Professor Roy Meadow, explained Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen by proxy syndrome to the jury, point out how Allit demonstrated symptoms of both, as well as introducing evidence of her typical post-arrest behavior and high incidence of illness, which had delayed the start of her trial. It was Professor Meadows' opinion that Beverly Allit would never be cured, making her a clear danger to anyone with whom she might come in contact. Okay, her trial. After a trial that lasted nearly 2 months, and at which Allit attended only 16 days due to illness, Allit was convicted on May 23, 1993, and given 13 life sentences for murder and attempted murder. It was the harshest sentence ever delivered to a female, but according to Mr. Justice Latham, it was commensurate. It was with the horrific suffering of victims, their family, and the ignominy she had brought upon nursing profession. Oh, I gotta look that up. Aftermath. The impact of Allit's case had the Grantham and Stevens Hospital was so severe that the maternity unit was closed down altogether. Rather than going to prison, Allit was incarcerated in Rampton Secure Hospital in Nottingham, a high-security facility housing mainly individuals detained under the Mental Health Act. As an inmate in Rampton, she began her attention-seeking behavior again, ingesting grounds of glass and pouring boiling hot water on her hands. She has subsequently admitted to 3 of the murders of which she was charged, as well as 6 of the assaults. The appalling nature of her crimes has placed her on the Home Office list of criminals who will never be eligible for parole. There have been accusations, most notably by Chris Taylor, father of Atlitt's first victim, Liam, and Rampton, that Rampton is more like a Butlins holiday camp than prison. The facility, which has some 1,400 staff to deal with around the clock and around to deal with around 400 inmates, costing taxpayers around $3,000 per week per inmate to administer. In 2001, there was a report that she was to marry a fellow inmate, Mark Heggie, although she is currently still single. Most recently, she was the subject of a Mirror newspaper inquiry in May 2005 when it was revealed that she received over $40,000 in state benefit since her incarceration in 1993. Wow, little lady. In August 2006, Allit applied for a review of her sentence, which led to probation services to contact victims' family about the process. Allit remains in Rampton. Wow. See, they got some more. Yeah, wow. So they did get her. It took them a couple months to figure that out. But I'm glad they figured it out when they did. Because ain't no telling what she would have did. She would have been killing everybody who came through there. Yeah. But so I think that's all I'm gonna do today. Beverly Allit, she was from Britain in United Kingdom, and she is the most notorious female serial killer. But you know, you don't have too many female serial killers. There's a few women. I have another woman that we're gonna talk about her the next time. Elizabeth Bathory. Now, she was Hungarian. She was Hungarian countess. Hungarian countess. Elizabeth Bathory is thought to have murdered hundreds of young women in the early 17th century. Oh, wow. That seems like that's going to be interesting. So that's what we're going to talk about next time. We're going to read up on that one and see what's going on that one. And thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I'm new at this, so I'm trying to get it together. So I know I make a lot of mistakes. I yarn. You see me flipping my pages. I have to practice. So I have to practice. So I have to practice to keep. This is she, Elizabeth Allit. She kind of look like Donald Trump, don't she? Like she could be related to Donald Trump, don't she? Look at her. Look like she could be related. Yeah, but that's her. She had a mental illness. That is Munchausen praxis. That's like a mental illness. And she has to I guess they're treating her for it while she's in that hospital, that state hospital that she's in. They're treating her for that because she's constantly still seeking attention because she's constantly going to the Okay, thank you. Have a blessed day.